Home sweet home, folks, and welcome back to hashtag AskGSM here today, emanating from my own room on the first of many editions to do so for the remainder of the summer. So like I said in my last video blog, got done with school on Friday. My sophomore year of college is officially over. Went to a New England Championship Iron 8 wrestling event on Saturday, which was great. That's actually where I got this punk shirt for only like 20 bucks, so that would be a nice souvenir. So we unpacked on Saturday, went to the show, went home right after that. Mother's Day yesterday, up bright and early to go to church, so it's been a pretty busy last couple of days. I'm extremely tired, so I apologize if I look like shit, if I sound like shit, if this video comes off like shit, I apologize. So just a brief few updates here before we get into the questions. One, now that I'm on summer break, I don't know like what the upload schedule is going to be like. For right now, I'm planning on doing the same thing what I've been doing for like the last year now. The Q&A videos on Mondays, the Wrestle Rant videos on Tuesdays and Saturdays. I'm going to be cutting those back to only Tuesdays and Saturdays at some point. Watching 3 pay-per-views a week, reviewing 3 pay-per-views a week gets to be a little bit much sometimes. And I can't always do it. So that's going to be toned down at some point in the next couple of weeks. So be on the, or in the next couple of months. So be on the lookout for that. But I mean, in terms of like when the videos go up, for the most part, like these Q&A videos, it's basically, I'm going to have more time than I would when I was at school. But when I go back to work in a couple weeks and I might do an internship in the next couple of months, it might mess up the schedule a little bit. You guys will be the first to know either in the video blog or on Twitter at WrestleRant, Facebook, all that stuff. So, here on YouTube or on, here on hashtag AskGSM, not WrestleRant. But, yeah, so the upload schedule may be a little wonky because I know when I was at school, I'd get out of class and I would upload the video around like 3, 4, 5 o'clock, sans with a, technical difficulty. Aside from that, they would usually be up at the same time every day. From now on, they might be up earlier, they might be up later, they might be up after Raw. I haven't missed an edition of this show in like a fucking year and a half, and I don't plan on it, That's another thing, too. I'm going to be kind of going on like a semi-break, kind of, so to speak, this week. I'm not going out anywhere, like I'm not going on vacation, but I just got done with school. I'm very tired. I'm just going to be relaxing this week for the most part. There will still be articles up. I'm still doing my reviews of like Raw, SmackDown. Those will never stop because I can't imagine not doing that stuff because then I have to go back and do it again, If I take a couple days off, I have to, everything piles up after a while. There's always a lot of stuff that needs to get done. So that stuff will always be up. But my articles for like Bleacher Report and What Culture and Hidden Remote, like that stuff will be toned down a little bit. I do have an article coming up for What Culture this week. So maybe just one for them and maybe one for Bleacher Report, maybe 1 or 2 for Hidden Remote. So not a lot of articles going up because I'm just very busy right now. Or, I'm just kind of just taking the week off. So not a lot of articles going up. But that's pretty much it. Also, if you noticed a change in the audio quality, I know I've had this webcam for a couple months. That's kind of upgraded the video quality of my hashtag AskGSM videos. I also have the microphone that I use for my podcast, the Yeti microphone. I couldn't use it before because my computer is completely shot for the most part, and only one USB drive works, so I would plug the camera into that one. But now that I'm home, I have some USB port that I could plug both the camera and the microphone into, so I could use both of them at the same time. So if you notice kind of an upgrade in quality for the audio, maybe you didn't, but maybe if there is, that's the reason why. So I'm kind of happy to have that. But let's get right into what you guys came here to see. Excuse me, my voice cracked there for a second. What you guys came here to see, the questions for this week's hashtag AskGSM. So kicking it off from Jose K from YouTube, his question was, not because of Damien Sandow, but how would you feel about a wrestler who uses the same finisher as the opponent he faces? Like if he's facing Randy Orton, he would try hitting the RKO, so on and so forth. No gimmick, that's just his finisher. That's been done before with guys like Eugene, not always using the finisher of his opponent. After a while, that just might get old. That just might get old. You said that wouldn't be his gimmick, but in a way, it kind of is. It doesn't have to be like mocking the person he's facing, but like you said, if it's just using his finisher, I feel like that might get old pretty fast. Maybe in like a trading places match or whatever the match stipulation is called when you have to dress up like your opponent or whatever when you trade places. Like for that kind of thing, I get it. But to do it as a regular thing is then you won't have your own identity. Like that's the issue with Sandow right now. Like I love Sandow. I don't think he's ever going to be a world champion, but I think he's better than what he's doing right now. The Macho Mando thing is fun if it's going to be short-lived, but it can't be his regular gimmick going forward. The guy has so much to offer, and I talked about this in an article about a week and a half ago on Hidden Remote, that he needs to establish his own identity in order to succeed, in order to flourish in WWE. And he can't do that if he's doing the constant gimmick thing. And I mean, the promo that he cut about a week ago on Raw, 2 weeks ago, I guess at this point, was great when he talked about his background and whatever. I thought that was awesome, and I thought he can go. I think he can go back to that. You know, the stealing of other people's gimmicks and finishers that only last for so long, and then people just kind of don't really connect with that person because they don't know much about them or they don't have their own identity. So yeah, it would be cool for like a short-lived thing. Maybe that somebody's not really doing anything, but other than that, I feel like, you know, people are just better just establishing their own identity and not, you know, feeding off of somebody else's. The first KFC, their question was, should Dean Ambrose's win over Seth Rollins last week on Raw should have been saved for a bigger moment like WrestleMania? You know, I'm a big proponent of shit like that. Like, I completely know where you're coming from and where, you know, a lot of people were like, oh, Dean Ambrose got buried and this and that last week. Or not last week, you know, but during the feud with Seth Rollins last year when he never won a match. And I felt like, and I said it then, and I said it last week on Raw, that the constant losses that Dean Ambrose took to Seth Rollins, not only on main roster, too, I believe someone pointed out to me a while ago, I believe someone mentioned that he had never beaten Dean Ambrose, or Dean Ambrose had never beaten Seth Rollins in FCW either. So their history goes a far ways back, down even to developmental, when Dean Ambrose had never been able to beat Seth Rollins, which is insane to me, you know. And they did acknowledge that Seth Rollins acknowledged that either in an interview or something. Maybe the commentators did, I'm not really sure. But if there was any one time to beat him, like if it's not going to be at for a championship at like a WrestleMania or a pay-per-view or something, I was fine with it happening on Raw last week because the implications were huge. It wasn't like it was a random match on Raw that, I mean, it was kind of announced out of nowhere, but it wasn't like, you know, they made it, there was nothing at stake or anything like that. Ambrose got his entry into a huge match of Payback for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. So I can kind of let that slide, but yeah, I do agree that, you know, I'm a big fan of the big wins, you know, finally getting your big win over somebody on a big stage. Like I said that with Zayn and Cesaro. You know, there's countless other feuds that I can't really think of right now. But, you know, stuff like that where they finally overcome their opponent after constant losses. They finally win their match. And it should come at a special occasion, not thrown away on Raw. And I'm glad, you know, it was on Raw. It was, you know, I was kind of iffy about that. But it came in a big match, a big win. The crowd ate it up, and it was an amazing match. So I can kind of let that slide. His second question, if Vince... I thought this question was comical. Not because you asked it, I just thought because there is a legitimate answer to this. If Vince McMahon ran NXT, would it be the same as it is today? Absolutely not. The only reason that NXT is successful, and I mean, you know, don't take this as me pooping on Vince McMahon. I love the guy. I'm a big fan of Better Than Ever at 69, or whatever the magazine cover said. I still laugh at that. But, you know, I feel like, you know, Triple H has really taken that as his own baby, the NXT developmental brand, and has made it just that, a brand that everyone, that it can grow, that everyone can connect to, can watch, can enjoy every single week. You know, that's why I love NXT as much as I do, as much as everyone does, you know, because it's such, you know, so different from the main roster. It's nothing like what Vince McMahon is putting out on Raw and SmackDown on the main WWE program shows. So the real answer to this is what would happen if Vince McMahon ran NXT? Simple answer. You would get what NXT was 5 years ago when it came on a Sci-Fi. That was what Vince McMahon's vision of what was for NXT. I mean, the early seasons, you know, I enjoyed it. It was stupid, but I enjoyed it. You know, even like the third season by the Divas season, it was entertaining for all the wrong reasons, though. The commentators treated it like shit. It was so bad, it was funny. But other than that, though, I mean, it launched a few careers. You know, a guy named, I don't know, what was his name? Daniel Bryan or something like that? The guy, I think, that won in the main event of WrestleMania 30. You know, it launched a few careers. But in the latter years, you got guys like fucking Fandango. You know, Brodus Clay, who's now gone. I love Brodus Clay, but he's gone now. He's in TNA. So many other names. You know, AJ too, which is great, of course. Like I said, it launched a lot of big names. But other than that, those gimmick shows, that competition style was atrocious. Are you really surprised that it did not last that long on Sci-Fi? It was on Sci-Fi for all of like 4 or 5 months before they pulled the plug on it, which is not surprising at all. I think the ratings were getting lower than what fucking ECW was doing in its final years, which is bad. When that's happening, you know it's a bad sign. So thankfully that whole shit was scrapped. And I know NXT was not developmental at that time, but technically it kind of was. I mean, NXT and ECW were one and the same in that they would bring up new talent, and that would be the platform they would introduce them to the WWE audience at. And when you introduce a new face to the WWE universe, as I like to call it, in a fucking drink this soda challenge or a monkey bar challenge or carry the keg challenge, people aren't going to take them seriously. That's why a lot of the careers of a lot of these guys, aside from the Nexus, bombed because no one ever really saw them as a threat, you know? Which is a shame because I feel like there's a lot more to offer with those guys, which is why NXT has grown into what it is today and why it's so great. You know, so that's the answer to that question. Pig Window, also from YouTube, their question was, the WWE has recently added a significant amount of new content to the WWE Network and is continuing to add new content every day. Do you feel that this is the best approach to gaining new subscribers, or is there some other method? You know, I think it's great. I've said this since day one when people were calling the network a failure. I mean, as of right now, as of Royal Rumble season, or maybe WrestleMania season, it surpassed 1 million subscribers. Maybe it went under that, I have no idea. But, you know, that's a huge milestone. I give them all the credit in the world for all the flaws that the network has. I enjoy the hell out of it. I mean, we complain every once in a while about day one subscribers not getting their due, about not getting, you know, any benefits or anything like that for signing it from day one while they keep on giving it out for free. You know, I still have my gripes about that. But other than that, though, the service itself was amazing. I'm not going to continue to, and I'm not going to praise it for the next 5 minutes. I think you kind of already know my thoughts on it. I love it. I mean, that's basically all I can say. That said, though, if they want to continue to build a subscriber fan base, they need to add new content and, you know, new original content. Like, I know Jerry Springer's show isn't for everybody, but like the Roman Reigns special, stuff like that I think is great. More content, the better, even if you're not watching. The Mick Foley Cheap Pop show, like stuff like that I thought was awesome. It's a huge get for the network. You know, maybe not a lot of people are going to sign up because I want to see Mick Foley's comedy show, but I feel like any new original content you can get for these kind of for the network, I think is awesome, and I think they need to continue to build upon that. And also, when I say add old content, I mean not all the pay-per-views are great, but I made a whole list about this on Hidden Remote last week about new shows they need to add. In regards to, there's a lot of different shows they need to add, but what comes to mind includes like the old King of the Ring tournaments that aren't on the network already, Shotgun Saturday Night, Heat, Velocity, ECW, Superstars, classic house show content, MSG Classics. There's a lot of stuff they could be adding on the network, and prime example, you know, I have an uncle who isn't a wrestling fan at all, but they would watch here and there, like one of those guys, you know, when it was huge back in the 80s, even if you're not a wrestling fan, you know, people were, it was like a part of pop culture, wrestling back in the 80s, and I hate to go on a tangent, I apologize, this is brief though, I promise, short and sweet, that, you know, while he was not a wrestling fan, he was very familiar with a lot of the big names, like Chief Jay Strongbow, Hulk Hogan, etc., etc., and, you know, I was talking to him about it about a year ago, and he works for, like, Comcast or Xfinity or something like that, and I was telling him about the WWE Network and how you can get all this content for only $9.99, or for free, basically, now, and, you know, he was blown away, because, you know, he would love to see stuff like the MSG stuff, you know, old house shows, and when he was the fan, you know, and a lot of that stuff isn't on the network, other than the pay-per-views. A lot of the house shows and stuff like that is not on the network, and I feel like people would subscribe for that small sum of $9.99 if they knew that's what they were getting into, or at least for the older generation. And in signing up and watching that old content, they might get into NXT, or they might see the Roman Reigns stuff. Not saying they'll become a fan of the product today, but they'll at least get a little bit more accustomed to what else is on the network other than what they're looking for, you know? So I feel like small stuff like that is only going to help the network grow more and more, and I think that's, you know, a great way of going about their business. Going into the Facebook questions here, Andre G. First from Facebook. This question was from last week. I forgot to answer it, so my apologies go out to Andre, but I'll answer it now. Besides Seth Rollins, who else do you see holding the WWE World Heavyweight title this year? I think Roman Reigns is a given, unless they hold off on it until WrestleMania. RJ and I talked about it on Wrestle Radio last week, and it's available in an excerpt video clip here on the channel if you want to check it out. It's from last Thursday or Wednesday or whatever it was, and we were talking about how we would book Rollins' reign as WWE Champion. So, I mean, it's only the month of May, so there's many more months to go until the end of the year, obviously. Who else holds the belt? We have no idea. Rollins could hold it until WrestleMania next year, and I would have no issue with that. So that could very well be the case. Roman Reigns, though, I feel like if there's anyone they're going to give the belt to, it would be Roman Reigns. Is it too soon to do it at Payback? Absolutely. But maybe at the end of the year, maybe by SummerSlam or Survivor Series or something like that, I feel like would be maybe a good time to put the belt on him if they wanted to. John Cena, I put in a question mark next to his name. I hope not. There is no real reason to have him be put back in the WWE title picture. You know, hell, he could drop the U.S. title at Payback to Rusev when whatever reason. However they go about doing that, I have no idea. We'll find out this Sunday, I guess. But, you know, if he drops that belt and enters the main event scene again, he could be holding that championship by the end of the year. And I would not, you know, bat an eyelash. I would not be surprised at all. So, you know, I could see John Cena. I hope not. It's not as likely as Roman Reigns, which is weird to say. But there is a possibility there. Dean Ambrose, you know, maybe that's a long shot. I could maybe see Dean Ambrose. Brock Lesnar, I don't think. I think they did that. They tried that. I'm not saying the experiment was a failure. They went about it the wrong way when he was champion. But I feel there's absolutely no reason to put the belt back on him, especially if he's coming back as a babyface. He got a lot of heat, you know, unintentionally for not being on TV when he was champion. Both legitimate heat and, you know, heel heat, whatever. And I feel like him as a babyface as champion wouldn't even make sense unless he's working a full-time schedule, which we obviously know is not the case. So, you know, putting the belt back on him, I feel like would be a step backwards. So maybe Roman Reigns, maybe John Cena, hopefully not, and as a long shot, Dean Ambrose. So moving into his current questions, first one being, what are your thoughts on the Fatal 4-Way pay-per-view? Should WWE bring it back? You know, a pay-per-view revolving around Fatal 4-Way matches. Oh, what a riveting concept, you know? I thought that was stupid. You know, at the time I thought it was dumb. I think it's dumb now. The pay-per-view itself wasn't bad. I don't think I ever even watched it, to be honest with you. I know the results. I've seen clips of some of the matches. I've seen pieces here and there, but that's funny. You know, in the year and a half, almost a year and 3 months that I've had the network, I've yet to go back and watch that pay-per-view. Maybe I will next month on like the 5-year anniversary of the show. I have no idea. So I really don't know. But we'll wait and see. Other than that, though, I feel like the pay-per-view itself was a waste. Like, the June pay-per-views for a long time were really bad. Until Payback came around, you know, the June pay-per-views were a total waste. And thankfully that, you know we had the Bash, we had fucking Fatal 4-Way, like you said. What else did we have? In 2010, we had... That was 2010. 2011, what did we have in jail? Capital Punishment, that was bad. We had Vengeance one year. No, Vengeance was, you know, back when it was good. Fucking No Way Out, which was bad in 2012. You know, yeah, so I thought the Fatal 4-Way pay-per-view was just dumb. You know, Fatal 4-Way matches, like the Hell in a Cell matches, like Steel Cage matches, should not be forced upon the WWE Universe. They should not be happening at the same time every single year. That's why they need to get rid of the TLC pay-per-view. Well, although I enjoy it more often than not, it needs to go for the sake of the concept of the matchup. Money in the Bank is the only real gimmick match pay-per-view that belongs to stay. You know, that always happened the same year at the same time every year anyway, at WrestleMania, so I don't really see the difference in holding it either at Mania or in June. You know, people have their own opinions on that. But other than that, though, Hell in a Cell, TLC, like, that stuff should only be brought about when it's necessary, not when there's fucking, you know, not just because. It's that time of the year again, let's do that Hell in a Cell match. You know, Fatal 4-Way pay-per-view, I thought it was the same thing. So I was never a fan of that, and it should not be brought back. Just keep that in the dead where it belongs. His next question, why do you think a lot of fans stopped caring about TNA? You know, after a while, people just give up. And I don't blame them either. I mean, I think TNA's come a long way in the last, I don't know, year or two. You know, I think since the move to Destination America, I think the quality of the program has improved a lot, I believe, in my personal opinion anyway. You know, they're still dealing with the financial issues, not getting enough exposure, and all this other stuff. But from a creative standpoint, from a product on, you know, televised product standpoint, I think it's gotten a lot better since January. So I'm happy about that. But, you know, TNA for how many years, guys? You know, like 10 years, people were like, oh, this is the company that fucks up. This is the company that puts the belts on, you know, puts the belt on the old guys that no one cares about. They push the wrong people. You know, you do something for so long, you're just going to get this reputation for being a fuck-up. And that's what happened to TNA. No matter how great they might become, and they're never ever going to be a competitor to WWE. That's just beyond the question. That's just completely out of the question. But I feel like, you know, if they try to turn their creative around, you know, no matter how good the product will be, some people just remember TNA, will never give it another chance, because they know either they will fuck up again, or they just remember them from their days of just being, you know, just a complete screwed up company from, I don't know, from what, 08, 09 to 2011, 2012? There was a long time where that company was not flourishing at all. Like, from a creative standpoint, like in WWE too, wrestling as a whole from like 2010, from 2009 to 2010, maybe 2011 for like the first half of it, was like boring as shit. There was nothing going on, a lot of bad booking decisions, both in WWE and TNA, in my opinion. Dark days for wrestling back in 2009 and 2010. But yeah, I feel like people just won't give it another chance because they know that they'll just be disappointed or they'll go back to their old ways, which they have here and there over the last couple of months, but for the most part, they've kind of steered that ship pretty clear for the most part. But yeah, people just stop caring because after a while, after you do something so many times, people just remember you as a fuck up, you know, whether you're a company or a person or whatever. It doesn't matter. No matter what you do to kind of, you know, build back up your reputation, people just remember you for that one stupid thing or the many stupid things in TNA's case that you did all those years ago. So it's unfortunate for them, but I think that's the answer that you might be looking for that question. Next question, who should Jeff Jarrett sign to GFW, Global Force Wrestling? You know, I really don't know, because, you know, a lot of people were saying that they should sign that big name. They need a big name for Global Force, and they didn't really have that big name in the roster. I think the roster so far is solid. It's not great, but I think it's pretty solid. You have Chris Masters, Luke Gallows, Lance Archer, Lance Hoyt, whatever his name is, Justin Gabriel, not Sarita, I think it was Rosita from TNA, Lady Tapa. You have a pretty solid roster. Chael Sonnen being the one of the commentators. I think that's awesome. So I think the roster so far is pretty good. Who should he sign them? That's the thing, and people have been talking about this for a while when like the rumors first started popping up that he was starting his own wrestling promotion. There's not many big names out there, you know. There's a few, you know, like those guys, like Masters and Gallows, like a really few good, solid mid-card guys, but they don't have that big name. And then, you know, granted, Lucha Underground didn't really have a big name either. They had John Morrison. It's not like John Morrison was ever anything big in WWE. Very popular, but he was never world champion or anything like that, although he came close. That's another story for another day. But, you know, and they've been doing pretty well. So maybe they'll make main eventers out of the guys they currently have. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. Maybe it's people we haven't seen before or whatever, but I think so far so good in that, you know, the roster is solid up to this point. I'm looking forward to seeing who else they sign. Other than a CM Punk, and he's already signed to UFC anyway, and a Batista, which you know is not going to happen. Same thing with Jericho. There's not many huge free agent names out there. You know, maybe if they got, you know, AJ Styles would be huge. That's who they should sign. I don't think they will, because I think he's happy doing what he's doing right now in the Indies and in New Japan and Ring of Honor. I don't think they're going to sign AJ, but, you know, now that I think about it, if there's one big name they should sign, and Samoa Joe is more than likely WWE bound, so they're not going to sign him, it's going to be AJ Styles. I feel like he's the guy they should sign to really bring some buzz. He's not a huge former WWE name, but he was the fucking face of TNA. And I would love to see AJ Styles in GFW. And him and Jarrett, from what I understand, have a good working relationship, so it's possible. And his final question, Kalisto versus Rey Mysterio versus Mystico. Who would you pick as the winner and why? Wow, that would be one hell of a matchup. And if we're talking like current form, you know, Rey Mysterio current form would not win, obviously. The guy's on the brink of retirement. But, you know, if it was all time, like all these guys at their peak, probably Rey Mysterio. Current, I'd probably go with Kalisto. Mystico, I'm not really a fan of. Oh, no, I was a fan of Mystico, but the whole, you know, Sin Cara character, the original character, just went nowhere, obviously. You don't need me to tell you that. But, you know, at their peak, probably Rey Mysterio has the most experience out of all those guys. Former multi-time world champion, an amazing in-ring athlete. Made a whole video blog about Ray a couple weeks ago. If you want to go back and check it out, cheap plug right here on the channel. You know, current form Kalisto, all-time Rey Mysterio. So Paul S. has got a couple questions here. First one being, does the WWE need to be concerned with Jarrett's GFW? I don't think so. I mean, Lucha Underground is kind of in that same... You know, when I think of GFW, I think of Lucha Underground. Right now, I mean, GFW does not have a TV deal. I don't know if they will. We'll have to wait and see. I hope so, for their sake anyway. But, you know, I kind of see in that same grouping of companies, in that, you know, it's not a company that, you know, it's not... Even TNA is not a threat to WWE. That goes without saying, you know, of course, obviously. But they have a lot of good talent that it's fun to watch, and I feel like GFW will be one of those promotions. GFW, well, you know, without that big name right now, that's their biggest issue, not even having a TV deal. WWE has no reason to be concerned about these guys. They're not concerned about Lucha Underground. I know they'll, like, remove signs from the crowd, like, to watch Lucha Underground. They did that with TNA. They do that with TNA. They do it with Lucha. which I think is dumb. I don't think WWE should do that because, like I said, they're the head honcho and nothing's going to overthrow them, or at least anytime in the near future. Maybe down the line, but GFW, I feel like, is no real threat. Although it might be a good alternative to WWE, I don't at all feel like it's going to be a threat financially or whatever. So when I say that, GFW has a couple steps to take before they're a legitimate threat to WWE. But in the meantime, though, I think they're a nice little alternative. There's no real reason to think they're going to put WWE out of business or anything like that. So, yeah, I am looking forward to it, though. I feel like with the roster they have so far, it's shaping up to be pretty solid, so I'm looking forward to what they put together in the end. His next question, of the 11 new NXT prospects that Triple H has signed, who do you suppose would be the next breakout star? I'm not familiar with a lot of the guys he signed. I saw a picture of them together, I think, with Triple H after he signed all of them to a contract, or to different contracts or whatever. But the only real guy I think out of that bunch that I was familiar with, I mean, this goes without saying for a lot of people, was Uhaa Nation. If I mispronounce it, I apologize. I think that's how you say it, Uhaa Nation. The guy's great. You know, from what I've seen in videos, from what I've heard about him, is even better than that. The video package they put together for him on NXT last week I thought was great. They're already promoting the guy to NXT. Now, I don't know if that's because they think he's ready. And, you know, it's weird, too, because I don't think it's because they think he's ready, because Kevin Owens was ready. Hideo Itami was ready. Finn Balor was ready. But they waited a couple months because they wanted to bring him on at the right time. I don't know if they'll debut him at the special next week. That would be amazing if the case, but I don't think that will be the case. Other than that, though, I feel like the guy will be a big star in WWE because I think he has all the tools. He has the in-ring work, he's got charisma, he's got good mic skills from what I've seen and heard. So I think the guy could be a big star in NXT and especially in the main roster. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does down the line in NXT, in the main roster, whatever. And like I was saying before, I don't know if they brought him up because they thought he was ready or just because they're lacking on talent right now. With Sami Zayn being injured, Hideo Itami presumably being injured for the next 6 to 8 months, which is nuts, and a few other guys getting injured as well. You know, they need all the top-tier talent they can get for NXT right now. You bring in Joe, you bring in Uhaa Nation, you're going to have a fuck of a roster, like one hell of a roster if you have those guys coming in immediately. So I'm looking forward to that, but I think Uhaa Nation has a lot of potential to be a big star in WWE, if booked properly, of course. His next question, with Brock Lesnar working on limited dates, do you think it's wise to have Sheamus as another Heyman guy? You know, that's an interesting pairing. I don't think so. I mean, I like the idea of keeping Heyman on TV in some form or fashion, because the guy's amazing. The fact he's not on TV right now, I feel like, is a crime. You know, you could do the manager thing. I know that botch that failed with Axel, and then Ryback, and then Cesaro too. But the booking wasn't there. It had nothing to do with Heyman, I feel like. I feel like it has all to do with the booking of these guys. But other than that, though, I feel like, you know, Heyman should be on TV, either as an authority figure or whatever. The guy needs to be on TV more consistently. He was cutting the best promos of the fucking year in a long time on the road to WrestleMania and the stuff with Brock Lesnar and the feud of the Roman Reigns. I thought that was phenomenal. We all did, you know? And we need more of that Paul Heyman on WWE TV. So hopefully they can bring him in some sort of fashion. With Sheamus being the next Heyman guy, I think Sheamus is better on his own. I've been loving what he's doing lately as, you know, the big guy, and that's Ryback, of course, but the new top heel, going back to his Celtic roots, dropping the funny shit jokes, you know, stuff, or the shitty funny jokes, or whatever, not funny shit jokes. He wasn't talking about poop, or at least I don't think so anyway. But yeah, I think Sheamus is better off on his own. I would love to see, however, a Sheamus and Brock Lesnar feud. Now, I've been saying this since Lesnar returned to the company back 3 years ago in 2012. I wrote a whole article about it on Bleacher Report, if you don't believe me, about why these guys would be the perfect match for each other. I feel like it would be even better with Lesnar as the babyface and Sheamus as the heel. You know, if they do that feud down the line, it gets me just excited just thinking about it, because I think that could be one hell of a match, one hell of a feud if they could book that properly, with Sheamus in his current role and Lesnar as the badass babyface. That would be one hell of a match. So I'd much rather see that than Sheamus as the next Heyman guy, because I think he's just fine. He's doing just fine on his own. And his last question, Paul's final question here. How does a Samoa Joe versus Kevin Owens rivalry sound to you? It sounds pretty damn good, brother. I think that would be one hell of a match. I mean, some people are already saying, you know, with Sami Zayn being out, and maybe Hideo Itami as well, who will challenge Kevin Owens for the championship at the next live special next week. You know, Sami Zayn can't make it, and Kevin Owens is boasting and bragging, and then out comes Samoa Joe, you know, to this tremendous pop. I don't think he's even signed with the company yet, so I don't think that's in the cards. But wow, imagine the pop for that. You know, if he showed up at the next live special, that would be incredible. I would love to see that happen. So, you know, Samoa Joe versus Owens down the line. If he's the one to take the belt off Joe, or off Owens, I think that would be phenomenal too. And then Owens can go up to the main roster where he belongs. So I think that'd be great. So I'm looking forward to that. But you know, I think a match between those two down the line, a rivalry or something like that, over the NXT Championship would be absolutely phenomenal. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Next question comes from Justin G, also from Facebook. If you had to choose a side of being either a member of the Bullet Club or the Nexus, who would you want to side with and why? That's a good question. I'd probably have to go with, although the Nexus is great, they're an awesome faction, love the Nexus. I mean, they weren't booked very properly, and I feel like if the Bullet Club was coming to WWE as well, they obviously wouldn't be booked properly either, given the tremendous amount of talent. The NXT had a lot of great talent too, or the Nexus had a lot of great talent, but they were never booked properly by the summer. They lost countless matches and all that other stuff. I mean, it's a very well documented downfall for the Nexus. But for the Bullet Club, I mean, and maybe they would suffer the same fate if WWE was to bring them, and that's why I don't really clamor for them to be brought in, because I feel like they wouldn't really be used to their full potential, or at least wouldn't be as over as they are right now in New Japan because of their booking and stuff. But I feel like the Bullet Club is kind of like a modern day version of NWO, which I'm a huge mark for. So I'd probably have to go with the Bullet Club, especially given that you know, AJ Styles is one of my favorite of all time. And the Nexus was great too. We know they were an awesome faction, but a bunch of rookies versus the Bullet Club and all the talent they have in there, I'd probably have to go with the Bullet Club for that specific question. Justin's next question here: if the Bullet Club and the Nexus were around and signed with WWE, who would you think would have the much bigger impact? Would probably have to go with the Nexus in this one, although I would side with the Bullet Club. I would probably have to go with the Nexus here, if only because I'm not all that familiar with the Bullet Club. I mean, I've seen their work. I watched not the Global Force Wrestling pay-per-view, but the New Japan pay-per-view that happened on the 4th of January of earlier this year. Great show. Bullet Club was all over, and been a big fan of the Bullet Club from, you know, I first heard about them when I saw them, whatever. I've seen bits and pieces of their work, but I feel like the biggest thing of what gets them over as heels over in Japan is the fact they're kind of like the foreigner group. You know, they're kind of invading the Japan territory and stuff like that. So that's why I feel like they work so well over there, because they're kind of like that foreigner heel group, which, you know, we've seen that in wrestling how many times over the last 3 decades. But I feel like it works for them because not only are they booked, you know, great, you have an amazing array of talent in that group. The Nexus, I mean, from a talent standpoint, the talent has to go to the Bullet Club. The Nexus was pretty solid, and although you had guys like Daniel Bryan, for like one night anyway, you had Wade Barrett and a few others. You know, you had like Michael Tarver in there who wasn't really that good. You had David Otunga, you know, a lot of guys. Slater, he was good, but a lot of these guys aren't nearly on the same level as being, you know, as the Bullet Club, the same array of talent, you know what I mean? So I'd probably have to go with the Nexus, though. I mean, although the Bullet Club has more talent, the Nexus was something, although it was kind of like an NWO invasion, something along those lines, it was something new because they were 3 rookies. The Bullet Club, if they were to come into NXT, or not NXT, or WWE, whatever, if they were to invade, although it would be cool because we've never seen any of those guys, like I would love to see AJ Styles in WWE. I feel like with the Bullet Club, though, what gets them over, like I said before, is because they're all foreigners. You know, foreigners kind of invading the Japanese territory, taking it over as their own, not respecting the culture. You don't get that in WWE, though, you know, because it's already the United States, so it's not like they're going to another country or something like that. So it's something completely different. And I don't think WWE would treat them properly anyway. They would make, you know, not Generation Me. They would make the Young Bucks. Generation Me was their TNA name. They would make the Young Bucks like they're Paul London and Brian Kendrick, or something like that, or they would book them very poorly. I mean, Brian Kendrick and Paul London were amazing and all, but, you know, they kind of died a death after a while. They didn't really do much with them. Still, though, I feel like the Nexus I would go with, because they weren't foreigners, but they were all fresh faces. They were all rookies banding together for a common cause, sticking it to the system. That's why I feel like the theory, you know, in theory anyway, why the Nexus was so great, because we had never seen anything like that before. It was innovative. It was something fresh. It was something new. We got all these fresh faces, and that's why I enjoyed it as much as I did. The Bullet Club, they wouldn't have that foreign factor in WWE because they're not foreign. They're all American anyway, and they could do something similar, and like I said, it would kind of be a modern-day NWO, which is basically what they are, but without that foreigner factor, they would basically be NWO 2.0, which is really, there's no point, you know, in that respect. So I'd have to go with the Nexus for your question there, in terms of which group would have the bigger impact in WWE. In wrestling, the Bullet Club, easily, in my opinion. The bigger, you know, in WWE, bigger impact has to go with the Nexus. His next question, do you think the WWE will reunite The Shield as a one-night only thing, or does the WWE think that is not necessary due to all three of the members are doing great on their own? When you say it's a one-night only thing, I'm assuming you mean a payback, and I've seen a lot of people talk about this. In the Fatal 4-Way, maybe they'll reunite and they'll turn on Randy Orton. Not only does it not make any sense from a storyline standpoint, I know they need more heels right now, but turning both Roman and Dean Ambrose heel would be a mistake. I feel like they might turn Dean Ambrose heel, and they'll do a Roman Reigns-Dean Ambrose feud for SummerSlam, which would be really, really cool, considering their obvious Shield history. I could see that happening if they turn Roman heel, maybe, but he's kind of in, like, chase mode right now, so I don't see why they would do that. It doesn't really make much sense. Maybe, you know, like as people have said, maybe they'll hit the Shield Powerbomb. Like, that would be incredible. That would be really cool to see on Randy Orton, like kind of like old times. They used to do it to Randy Orton anyway when they were the Shield. Randy Orton was like one of their biggest enemies early on in their careers on the WWE main roster. But, you know, there really is no reason to do a Shield reunion right now. I'm as much as the next guy, I want to see them come back, reunite at some point and hear Sierra Hotel, India Echo, Lima Delta, the Shield, and I'll mark out like crazy. You know, the rest of the theme we've heard before because Roman uses it every single week, and he needs to change that theme, by the way. But hearing that intro again will be incredible. Like, the pop that we'll get will be immense. So I'm looking forward to that. You know, like Seth Rollins or someone is in, you know, getting beat up by the Authority, and out comes Ambrose and Rollins, or Ambrose and Reigns, that theme. It would be fantastic. That said, though, I mean, there's no real reason to do a reunion at this point in time. Maybe by the end of this year. Even then, I feel like that's pushing a little bit. Wait until 2016 or 2017. As you said, all three guys are doing great right now on their own. There is no reason to reunite them. And what would they even do? You know, it's not like, you know, we can see them up against Authority. What, do the Shield as baby faces versus, what, Kane, Big Show, and fucking Seth Rollins or something like that? That's not going to work. You know, so I would not be a fan of that at all. Yeah, so... you know, I don't really, there's no real reason to do it. Like, it would be interesting, but there's no reason to do a Shield reunion right now. Just save that for later down the line. I feel like it's going to mean more the longer they wait to do it. As final question, Sami Zayn on WWE, Neville on WWE, and now Itami is injured. Do you think that the talent pool in NXT right now is growing thin? I do. I mean, Sami Zayn, even if he, you know, obviously he was scheduled to be at the next special, but with the injury, no one really knows right now. Neville's on the main roster, like you said. He's done in NXT, and Itami's now injured, as you said, as well. So, yeah, they do need more talent right now in NXT. They have a lot of great talent, but they don't have enough top-tier names. With Zayn being, you know, promoted/injured, Neville being promoted, Itami being injured, and a few others being injured as well, both on the women and men's side. Alex Riley's out. There's some other diva that's injured right now. So they need more talent. And like you said, they're growing a little bit thin, but that's, you know, if they're going to promote Uhaa Nation to the main roster or to the NXT roster, to NXT TV at some point in the near future, and maybe Samoa Joe as well, there's no real reason to worry. And you can always push guys like, you know, Tyler Breeze, who's already kind of considered a top heel as it is. It just kind of gives those guys more of a push. You know, there's so many great talent right now in NXT that not everyone's going to get a title run. Not everyone's going to be pushed. But with Zayn and all these other guys getting promoted/injured, it gives them more of a chance to step up. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm hoping that it becomes the norm, you know, that we see those guys pop up, like a Joe or, like I mentioned before, a Uhaa Nation. Because if they promote those guys to NXT TV, they will have no need to worry, because those guys will be carrying the load until Zayn and those other guys come back or they bring in new talent. At the Average Grunt, so now moving into the Twitter questions. First one being, is SummerSlam the pay-per-view for wrestling purists? Why or why not? I mean, you know, that's a good question. I don't think so. It's not like the IWC pay-per-view or anything like that. It has been in recent years. You know, the 2011 edition, 2013, 2014, they were all great. But, you know, I don't feel like it's the IWC pay-per-view. If anything, I would feel like the Money in the Bank pay-per-view is the IWC pay-per-view, because the 2011 installment was like the epitome of an IWC pay-per-view, an IWC event, as well as like the next couple of shows for Money in the Bank were also really, really good, and they were also very very pro IWC. So I'd probably have to go with Money in the Bank. SummerSlam, although it's one of the best shows of the year, I don't know if I would call it a wrestling purist show, because, you know, not every match on that card is going to be an you know, a 5-star classic. You know what I mean? Like the Brock Lesnar John Cena match, although it was great, it was not a Matt classic. You know, Brock Lesnar annihilated John Cena the entire time. And then we had Stephanie and Brie, which was good, but it wasn't, again, not a Matt classic. Like AJ and Paige got 5 minutes on that show, if that. So I wouldn't call it a wrestling purist show, but it is consistently one of the most entertaining events of the year, in my opinion. His next question, how do you feel about people that only watch your Q&A videos until their question gets answered and then they leave? So I thought this was an interesting question, kind of to address this. And, I take no offense by that whatsoever. If you send in a question, if you even watch for a minute, watch for your question, you're watching it all. It adds to the views. I appreciate it. Even if you subscribe and you don't watch the video every single week and you watch every single, watch every other week or something like that. Or like I said before, like, he pointed out, you only watch for your question. That is completely fine because I know a lot of other people, I would maybe do the same exact thing. It's difficult, especially with these videos. I mean, who wants to sit here and listen to me talk for an hour and a half? If you're among the minority that sits there for an hour and a half or an hour or whatever it may be, listening to me ramble on about my random thoughts on wrestling and answering questions, then I love you. Thank you very much for your support. It means a lot to me. So I very much appreciate that because I know no one can't. I mean, especially you're looking at someone that's always busy. I'm always doing something and I can't really sit down. I never watch TV for the most part, aside from like Raw and those shows and stuff like that. So I can't really, it's kind of hard to take even like an hour out of my day to do something. So to sit down and listen to an hour of Q&A or something like that, I do that for very few people. Like the Solo Monster, I'll sit down for 2 hours every Sunday and listen to his podcast. And I don't expect a lot of people to do the same thing for me. And if you do, that honestly, it really does mean a lot. And your support is greatly appreciated. But like I said before, even if you're not and you're listening to 5 minutes of the video for your own question or for someone else's question, that's cool too. You can pick and choose as to what questions you want to listen to. And I do the whole thing on Facebook and on the website, nextwrestling.net, where I kind of put a clip or a preview of the questions I'm going to answer. So you can look at that question like, oh, I really want to get his thoughts on that. And you don't have to listen for the rest of it. The video was an hour and a half. I don't expect anybody, much less one or two people, to sit through the entire thing. I can't sit through the entire thing, So I don't blame you whatsoever. I welcome that. And as long as you watch and as long as you're sending in questions, there's some people that send in questions and don't even, that send in questions or don't watch the videos or whatever. They're just kind of adding to the show. And again, that any question, any support like that is greatly appreciated. And I hate to sound like a broken record, but it means the world to me. So thank you so much. At Reborn Again's got 2 questions. First one being, do you think we'll ever see Eric Bischoff in an on-air role again in WWE? I don't think so. I think that ship has kind of sailed. I mean, he hasn't been on WWE TV in about 10 years. I don't want to say he's past his prime. He's an on-air character. It's not like he's wrestling or anything like that. From what I understand, though, there might be some sort of working relationship between him and Jeff Jarrett, so he could be involved in GFW, which is interesting. I mean, I know he never did he never did wonders for TNA, but if he's not given any power or anything like that, I think it could be only a benefit, only a nice little addition to the GWF or GFW talent pool or officials or administrative officers, whatever. I think it only helps. So I don't think we're ever going to see him again like as the GM. Like I would love to see him pop back up again and hear the "I'm back," that theme again. That was great. So I would love to see Eric Bischoff back in WWE for like a one-off return. For an on-air role again would be amazing, would be awesome. I just don't expect it. His next question, also, who do you feel is the next female wrestler WWE will induct into their WWE Hall of Fame? That's a really good question, because I was talking about this right before WrestleMania this year. Like, I feel like Alundra Blaze / Medusa, whatever you want to call her, was like the last one. Like the last huge women's name, aside from China, but like as we learned on the Triple H podcast, that's not happening anytime soon. So other than her, there's not a lot of women's wrestlers that need to go in ASAP. I could see them, and I've said this before, maybe like a Jazz or a Victoria maybe down the line, or a Jacqueline. Like I could see those women going in. A Sable, especially. I know some people are waiting until, or thinking that they'll wait until they induct Brock Lesnar, who is also, in my opinion, WWE Hall of Fame worthy, but he's not going in anytime soon, considering the fact he's still with the company, he hasn't retired yet. He won't be going in for a while. Maybe they save him for the same Hall of Fame class, given their current, they're also, they're married, obviously, in real life. So I could see that happening, but, yeah, that's a really tough question. Like, it's going to be a while before they induct, like, a Mickie James or something like that. But the next woman, like, they're very rarely do they ever induct 2 women in the same class. Usually they have one woman, a bunch of guys, and then one manager, one person who's passed away, and etc., etc. I feel like for next year, if they have that one woman, it should be Cyndi Lauper. And they can kind of combine the whole celebrity thing and the women's factor. Like, they always have one celebrity, one woman, etc., etc. They can combine that with Cyndi Lauper. Why she's not in already, I'll never really know. I am just mind-boggling. It's asinine to me. as to why she's not in already. You know, for everything she did for wrestling and WWE or whatever for 30 years ago, all this stuff with Captain Lou Albano. Why she's not in is just mind-boggling to me. So she should absolutely be the next one to be inducted next year. Again, she's not a wrestler, but she is a woman. She is a celebrity, and she is more deserving than anyone else that comes to mind right now. Above and beyond deserving of an induction to the WWE Hall of Fame. At Cody Collier 37, his question was, what do you think has been your favorite pay-per-view to review in your Wrestle Rant videos, and why? I mentioned this when I was reviewing them not too long ago, a couple weeks ago. The Backlash shows were a lot of fun to review and watch. Watch and review, because I think those shows were so great. Almost every single installment was so much fun. Especially the later editions like the 03 show, the 04 show, the 05 show. All those installments were really a lot of fun to watch. And, that was one of those videos, one of those series of videos when I was doing the whole Backlash shows, reviews, and whatever. People were tweeting me on Twitter saying, because of your reviews, I am now going back to watch Backlash, whatever year it was. And, that's what that whole video series is about. To not only go back for myself and watch these shows, but to also, suggest them and recommend them to other people to watch too, and what they should watch for, etc. So, that's kind of the whole point of the series, and I'm glad that that video series, more than anything else that I've reviewed so far, kind of touched people. The WrestleMania one, although it was very arduous, or however you say that, it was a very long process to watch every single WrestleMania, 1 through 30, every one being 3 or 4, 5 hours, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. It was a lot of fun, though, to watch some of my favorite WrestleManias, some WrestleManias I've never seen before in their entirety. So either the WrestleMania videos, the Backlash video, or the Backlash pay-per-views, the WrestleMania videos, Backlash, or WrestleMania pay-per-views. I'm trying to think what else. The Extreme Rules shows were a lot of fun to watch. TLC, SummerSlam, which I'll be getting more into this summer, by the way. I'll be doing Judgment Day right now. And then it's Payback, and then Money in the Bank, and then every SummerSlam edition I've not already reviewed. That's coming up this summer, so that's something to look forward to. But, either the WrestleMania shows, the Royal Rumble shows, and the Backlash shows are a lot of fun to watch and review right here for the channel. Next question comes from @BigBird432. His question was, who do you think is the biggest star that never lived up to their full potential? That's what the whole series that I did on Bleacher Report was for, the whole Push to Punish series. You have Mr. Kennedy, which I feel like is the first person that came to mind. He could have been a world champion. I honestly think that, either on SmackDown or on Raw or whatever. He had a lot of untapped potential, but due to injuries and backstage politics and heat and whatnot, he never really reached his full potential in WWE. There's a lot of people they dropped the ball on or never really went as far as they should have. Mr. Kennedy is one of them. Ted DiBiase was another guy that came to my mind like, what the hell happened to Ted DiBiase? That guy had all the tools to be, maybe not the next John Cena or something like that, but I feel like he could have been a top star. I think he could have done really well for himself in WWE had his booking not just been weird. I'm not even going to say bad. It was just very weird. The legacy thing kicked off his career in a high note. 2-time World Tag Team Champion. Being aligned with Randy Orton was huge for him. And then they just didn't go through on the babyface turn, on the face turn when they should have. He was destined to be a breakout babyface, but because they waited until, when it was too late in late 2011, it didn't work out. He left the company about 2 years later after not being on TV for like a year or two. So Ted DiBiase could have been huge. He could have been something. There were rumors of him facing The Undertaker at WrestleMania. How legitimate those rumors were, how seriously they were being considered, I guess we'll never really know. But he did have all the tools to be a big star in WWE, and they just dropped the ball on him for whatever reason. And he never even got to win a singles title, so he was a guy that I felt like could have been a big star in WWE, but they just didn't pull the trigger fast enough, and they did it way later, much after it was kind of after his time had passed pretty much. After he was already relevant in the legacy, and by the time he finally turned babyface, people just didn't really care. And he wasn't given anything substantial, anything worthwhile to do anyway. So that was kind of WWE's fault. So Kennedy and DiBiase come to mind, but like I said, you can check out the whole Push to Punish series, all 45 editions from the last 4 to 5 years on nextEraWrestling.net. You can check it out for yourself. And, yeah, that's pretty much it. So make sure to check out that on the website. There's a lot of people, but Kennedy and DiBiase came to mind. So we're closing down here. A couple more questions to go. At Swagzio, their question was, should the Usos turn heel and when they return? I wouldn't be opposed to it. I feel like they're better off as baby faces because they're over as it is, but people are thinking they're stale. With Naomi going heel and they want to turn the Usos heel too, I'd be completely on board with that. I'd be completely content with that. Especially with Cesaro and Tyson Kidd as baby faces. You have the Lucha Dragons, you have the primetime players who aren't really on TV much, but the Usos, if they turn them heel, could be something new, especially considering they first came out of the scene as heels. And like I said, they're much better off as baby faces, and maybe it would flop, and then you just turn them back into a babyface duo, if that works. If it doesn't work out, then you turn them back babyface. That's my philosophy. But, yeah, I feel like it'd be something innovative, something they haven't done in a while, and something we haven't seen in 4 years, I think. I think they turned in maybe 2011, sometime around then. So I'd be completely fine with them turning them back heel upon their return. His next question, could Sami Zayn be the next Daniel Bryan as like an underdog babyface that the crowd loves? Absolutely. I've always made that comparison. Sami Zayn, Bayley, and Daniel Bryan, to me, are like the trifecta of talent that you just can't help but like. So the underdog babyface, they're so relatable, they're so likable, they're great in-ring talents too. You just want to see them succeed so badly. That's why I think all three of those, not guys, but Bayley too. Bayley, Zayn, and what was the other one that I? Oh, of course, Zayn and Daniel Bryan. Those three people I feel like are the epitome of what an underdog should be in wrestling. They play those roles to perfection in NXT and WWE. So yeah, I think Sami Zayn, could he fill that Daniel Bryan-like role? Will he be as over? Only time will tell. I'm not even going to begin to speculate, but with the Olay chance and the reaction he got on Monday, the debut that he had, and stuff like that, I feel like the NXT career that he had, he is destined for big things. And WWE would really have to try, like intentionally to mess him up in order for him to fail. Like there's no way they can botch this guy's push, his potential, given all the, the amazing potential that he has, all the tools that he has to be a big star in WWE. World champion or not, Sami Zayn, sky's the limit in terms of what he can accomplish in WWE. And I think he can kind of fill in that Daniel Bryan-like role, especially right now. I mean, it sucks that Zayn is injured, but with Daniel Bryan being out for an undisclosed period of time, Zayn can kind of fill in that role. Fill in that role of that underdog babyface until he comes back, and maybe they could do a nice little feud down the line. I would love to see Zayn versus Daniel Bryan at a WrestleMania or a SummerSlam or something like that. That would be incredible. Final two questions here. First from at Super Say Andre. His question was, should John Cena hold the United States title until WrestleMania and have an young up-and-coming babyface take it from him? I love the idea of a guy like a Zayn or a Finn Balor or an Owens, which I don't see happening, or Samoa Joe even, again, don't see happening, because he'll probably be in NXT for a while before he gets called up, if he comes to WWE, but it's all but confirmed at this point. I love that idea, but WrestleMania, that's the only issue that I have with that question there, because I feel like WrestleMania is too far away. It's May right now, so which means we'd be doing the US Open Challenge, and as much as I love the US Open Challenge, there is no way they can come up with fresh opponents for him for the next 9 months, for the next 9-10 months, every single week. He'd have to go through every single guy in the roster in order for that to happen if they're going to do the US Open Challenge every day for the next year. SummerSlam, I think, is a suitable place to do it. He won the belt at WrestleMania, loses it at SummerSlam. I'd be okay with that. So if that happens, I'd be all on board. So I'd be completely content with John Cena holding the belt until SummerSlam, then dropping it to a Finn Balor or a Samoa Joe or something like that. Would be great to see. So WrestleMania, a little bit far-fetched because I don't think it's going to last that long as much as I love it. But SummerSlam would be a good timetable because it's a couple months away. We get a few more open challenges, U.S. Open challenges on Raw for the next 3 months. And then someone beats it for him at SummerSlam. Again, selfishly speaking, I'll be there in attendance. So I would love to see that happen, a Finn Balor debut and beat him for the belt. But that's the perfect stage for it, because WrestleMania is like, SummerSlam is the WrestleMania of the summer. It's the next best thing, and I'm looking forward to it. So hopefully that kind of is the end game for all of this. Unless he drops the belt to Payback, I think at this point, just keep it going. There's no real reason for him to drop it. Rusev will be dead in the water, but, it's a lose-lose situation for both guys, no matter what happens to Payback. Final question comes from @EnragedAsshole. His question was, what do you think about Crazy Steve's gimmick? Too doink-like, or does it have potential? You know, I've never really been a Crazy Steve fan, but it's not because of him. It's more so because of his booking. At the Average Grunt, you know, mentioned this in, I think he tweeted me a while ago when the Menagerie made their debut about a year or so ago about how he knows Crazy Steve. I think he took a picture with him. He's a fantastic indie talent. The guy's a very good in-ring worker. You know, from the matches that I've seen him in the X Division and stuff like that, he is a very good worker. The gimmick, though, I just think is dumb. You know, not just him, the whole Menagerie thing. They haven't been on TV in weeks. You know, God bless, but they haven't been on TV in forever. Crazy Steve, though, I think if they break him away from that and they just kind of break up the gimmick stable as a whole, because I think it's so dumb, they just kind of let him do his own thing and be crazy. The clown thing I'm not a fan of, but if they just let him be crazy, you know, I'd be in favor of that. Like I said, the guy's a really good in-ring talent. He's not too Doink-like. I think Doink-like was way too cartoony. I mean, for the time it fit and it made sense. You know, not Doink. Crazy Steve isn't too cartoony. He is a little over the top, but he's not as cartoony. He's like a Joker-like clown than a Doink-like clown, in my opinion. But he does have potential. You know, I don't think him as a clown has potential to be anything big in TNA. But if they strip him of the clown crap, I think he can be a solid X Division champion and be a really good talent, because I think he has the in-ring skills, so there's no real reason to give him a dumb gimmick. And sometimes they give people horrendous gimmicks, you know, over-the-top gimmicks, because they're not a good wrestler and it kind of makes up for it. That's not the case with him, because like I said, from what I've seen, he's a really good in-ring worker, and they're just kind of putting that to waste by either putting him in the Menagerie stable or not having him on TV at all. So strip him of the clown stuff, and I think he could be a valuable asset to the X Division in TNA. So that's going to do it for today's hashtag SGSM video. And I hate to disappoint, I apologize. The story I'll be telling that I mentioned at the start of the video, I'll be probably relaying that into a Facebook post or something like that. You know, I realized in making of the video I had to stop, pause way through, or halfway through the video. It's probably better to elaborate it in a written form, so I just want to kind of maybe make that announcement, I guess, here in this video form. For the Facebook page at facebook.com/Graham or /Graham.gsm.Matthews. Make sure to check out the page, give it a like, check out the post. It'll be up later tonight with a personal story of mine, some other announcements coming for this summer in terms of articles and videos and stuff like that. And, of course, find me on Twitter at WrestleRant. Ask me a question with the hashtag AskGSM. You can leave a comment on this very video as well. And I'll be sure to include your question in next week's edition. And as I said at the start of the video, the upload schedule of the hashtag AskGSM videos, the Q&A videos, and whatever else will be kind of fluctuating over the next couple of months for the summer. You know, there's no set time I'm going to be uploading them. Same thing with WrestleRant Radio. That's going to be recorded on Tuesdays. That will be up by the afternoon, the evening, the night, whatever. So be on the lookout for that. And as I said before, although I'll be kind of on break this week, you know, quote unquote, every video, all the videos will be up as scheduled. Like, there's no taking days off from videos, unless something like serious happens or something like that. You know, I was sick about a couple months ago, I think in January. My schedule kind of got messed up a little bit, and I couldn't film videos. But other than that, though, videos will be up every single day, because the Q&A videos are up now, the WrestleRant videos on Tuesdays, the WrestleRant Radio videos, the excerpts on Wednesdays and Thursdays, Fridays, the random video blogs, and then Saturdays and Sundays, the WrestleRant videos. As I mentioned earlier, just kind of a brief heads up, the WrestleRant videos, the pay-per-view reviews, will be scaled back to 2 a week, and not 3. Not Tuesdays, Saturdays, Sundays, probably just Tuesdays and Saturdays. Sundays, and it gets to be a little much, and when I kind of mapped out like when I'm going to be doing each SummerSlam review, I try to do three a week to just kind of squeeze them all in, but at this point in time, though, there's no real reason to do 3 a week. With the amount of SummerSlam pay-per-views I'll be watching and reviewing and whatever. Occasionally there will be, but just expect that maybe by right after Money in the Bank in mid-June, it'll be down to 6 videos a week and not 7. But there's still a hell of a lot of content here on the channel to watch out for. Make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. If you don't like the Q&A videos, you can check out the pay-per-view reviews. If you don't like those, you can check out the WrestleRant Radio excerpts, the video blogs, and anything else here on the channel. A lot of stuff to be on the lookout for, so I appreciate your support. Stay subscribed. Have a great summer, folks. Graham, Matthews here, and I'll catch you guys down the road.